Chapter 8 is a real short chapter in your book and paragraph in the contract. Chapter 8 just wants everybody to realize and everybody to understand that any sales commissions are lined out and agreed upon between the parties in separate written agreements. For example, a listing agreement. So this sales contract does not obligate the buyer or the seller to pay the real estate firms, that are involved in the sale. This is particularly important when you're showing a for sale by owner. You've got your buyer, they're in your car, they're going to meet you there. You need to negotiate and have the sales commission agreed upon before you show the property. There is a form once you get your real estate license and join the Texas Association of Realtors, Abilene Board of Realtors, Abilene Association of Realtors, that gives you access to the form that will protect you on these for sale by owners. Now, when you're showing your buyer just regular MLS listings that are there's a sign in the front yard with the real estate office, this paragraph is really not applicable because you're ratifying and agreeing on the fees involved on page 9 that's in the sales contract. So anyway, that's pretty much all on chapter 8. You can read through your book and get a little better explanation on that probably. But paragraph 9 or chapter 9 talks about closing. And when you're sitting across the desk from your buyer, you have to look at this whole transaction and say to yourself, how long do we anticipate needing to close? How many days do we need to close? The book on the top of page 131 is really inaccurate anymore. Post 2008, when the Dodd-Frank Act went into law, there's a lot more disclosures. The lenders typically take a little more time to go through the buyer's credit information and things like that. I would say probably best case scenario using any type of loan is going to be around 30 days. You can usually, from the effective date of the contract to your anticipated closing date, is going to be about 30 days. Cash deals where there is no loan involved, you can probably get those out of the way in a week to 10 days, 2 weeks, depending on how busy the title company is. Because even on cash deals, there's still a title policy issued. But typically 30 days is a good day. So you have to look at this, paragraph 9A, and you've got to plug in a date here. What I would suggest is like today is June the 12th. And if I had a buyer today that I'd been showing and we were writing up an offer, I would probably put July the 12th or July the 15th. Just make sure you don't put the closing on a Saturday or Sunday or on a holiday. So get your calendar and take a look at it. Make sure you're putting in the right date. This is an on or before date. So if everything is ready to close in 20 days, the buyer's ready to close, seller's ready to close, just close it. Set a time, communicate with the other agent if there is one. the buyer, the seller. If we're ready to close, let's just get it closed. You do not have to wait until whatever your closing date is, if everything is ready. At closing, the buyer and seller, according to this contract, are going to agree to sign certain documents like a HUD-1 settlement statement, affidavits as to debts and liens. Basically, there's a lot of information, particularly on the buyer's side, that the buyer is going to sign for the lender. Deed of trust. They're going to sign the note. They're going to sign name affidavits. The list goes on and on and on of what the buyer's going to have to sign. The seller, they've got a real limited amount of paperwork that they're going to sign. They're going to sign the deed. They're going to sign an affidavit as to debts and liens. They're going to sign the acknowledgement of the HUD-1 settlement statement, and there might be a few more forms depending on the lender, but that's pretty much it. Seller gets out of there pretty quickly. On B5, if the property is rented, if the home was rented, maybe this buyer is buying this as an investment property, there is some accounting that is going to have to be done at closing or prior to closing and placed on the HUD-1 settlement statement or agreed on between the buyer and the seller outside of closing in regard to the security deposit and the prorated amount of the rent. Because you have to remember, if you've got a tenant maybe on one side of a duplex that one of your customers is buying, customer's going to leave that tenant in there. The tenant's got $500 security deposit. Well, as of the date of the closing, the tenant now has a new landlord, your new buyer. So that deposit needs to be transferred over to your buyer, to the new landlord. If you're closing, say for example, on July the 15th, well, that tenant will have paid the rent for July on or around the 1st, and so the owner of that property is going to have to prorate the lease and credit your buyer back for a half a month, because as of July the 15th, the seller does not own the property anymore. Their ongoing cost of ownership stop on the day of closing. So, your new buyer, your client, is entitled to the rest of the July rent. So, they're just little areas, little details that you need to really keep track of. Again, in paragraph 9, the book does not match the contract because that paragraph 9.5 was put in there. So anyway, thanks a lot.